Incarnation. Describing the past few months in the heavenlies as unusual would be an understatement, a gross understatement, even for an angel. You, Zandai, from the 2nd Division of Uriel, have seen many amazing events in your life, but none has challenged the momentous events of these recent days. For this moment, you have carved a gap of normality out of the relentless supply of extraordinary. You're seated at an intricately detailed table, inlaid with expertly wrought flecks of ruby and jasper. You lean your weight on your elbows, and in your palms you cradle a great goblet of cut crystal. The goblet is brimful of your favorite drink, Vexian. Slowly, purposefully, you lift it to your lips and sip the hot, syrupy liquid. It crackles and dances on your tongue and causes your insides to giggle as it makes its way down. Ah, home. There is no place like it. Your transcendent bliss is interrupted by the excited soprano voice of Elinzaith, your best friend, who has broken away from the buzz with you to share a quiet drink and to trade stories. So, she prompts, don't make me wait a moment longer. I can't bear it. What is she like? By she, Elinzaith is, of course, referring to Mary. All of heaven has echoed her name since your division returned from the mission a month ago by the human reckoning. You had remained behind to watch over her with 11 other angels, while the balance of the company returned to the heavenlies. Your mind happily yields to the memory of those sweet hours as you tell Elinzaith your story. Well, you begin, the flavor of your most recent sip of Vexian lingering on your tongue. She is beautiful. Elinzaith almost ignites with pleasure. You continue. She's not beautiful externally. Well, not unusually so. She carries her Israelite heritage well. Do you remember Leah, the wife of Jacob? Oh, yes, exclaimed Elinzaith. I loved Leah. She didn't have Rachel's curves, but her eyes were gorgeous. Yes, you reply. It's her eyes. Mary's eyes remind me of Leah. She's also humble, like Leah was. She doesn't have a presumptuous or snooty bone in her body. Ah, sighs Elinzaith, the Most High always loves humility. A troubling thought creates a momentary pause. Elinzaith notices, but she patiently waits for you to speak. You twirl the ruby red Vexian around in the bowl of the glass, and then you speak your mind. She is poor. Poor? Asks Elinzaith. Are you concerned that she's not the daughter of a queen? No. I mean, she is poor. Her family are practically peasants. They suffer under the Roman hand. Her father is a stonemason's assistant. He struggles to put bread on the table. She has several brothers and sisters, and all are crammed into a single bedroom house. Elinzaith's face mirrors your concern. A moment of silence, and then she speaks. What about her fiancé? Perhaps she's marrying into money. No, you reply. You'll be as poor as her father. Both you and Elinzaith stare into your drinks for the longest time. Truly, she muses, he has emptied himself of everything in order to be with them. Her words prompt a thought in your mind, and you snap out of your pensive state. Speaking of, you exclaim, I hear it is quite a show up here. Tell me, what happened when your detachment returned? Of course, she exclaims as she reaches for your hand. You were down there with her. I forgot. Oh, Sandai, it was spectacular. Her elegant, exquisitely expressive face captivates you as her dancing soprano voice weaves the tale of that night's events. All of heaven was throbbing in aquamarine that evening. We attempted to go about business as best we could, but everyone kept an eye on the portal, waiting for Gabriel and your division to return. Even the three were focused on the portal. Eventually, everyone abandoned all hope of good behavior, and we all crowded around the door, waiting. A millennium seemed to pass. You draw in closer, imagining the scene. Of course, it was as black as the abyss on the other side. We couldn't see a thing. But then they began. Faint, violet strokes of light. It was the 12, cavorting in the sky above Nazareth. Nobody can make an announcement like an ultraviolet. As the company approached the portal, we heard their chorus, an ancient tune. To fully speak the truth, I'd never heard this arrangement before, not in its fullness. I've heard strains of it from time to time, particularly at coronations, but never the full song. It grew and grew as the company approached the portal. The light intensified as well. It was mostly a swirl of aquamarine with billows of yellow and orange. The sound grew and grew until we all began to resonate with anticipation. I cast a quick glance behind me to see the three. Their faces were filled with mischief. Finally, when we felt we were about to burst, the ultraviolets rocketed through the portal, all yelling one word, Messiah. Oz and I. They set all of heaven on fire. We spontaneously erupted into a symphony of delight. How I wish you had been here. I have never witnessed a celebration anything like that. To picture it, you would do well to recall the song which we sang at creation, the one which has echoed through the cosmos ever since. Then layer that song and harmonize each layer, and then amplify it 1,000 times over. I am certain that you heard us down in Bethlehem, she asks. You snap out of your listening mode when you realize that she's actually expecting an answer. No, you fumble. No, not at all. In fact, the evening was very quiet. Really? Exclaims Ellen Zaith with a quizzical look on her face. Quiet? Yes, you continue. Mary sort of wafted about in a sea of ecstasy that afternoon. She's so pure, so innocent. It is refreshing to see in a human. She sang for the rest of the day and she cleaned. Every now and again her mood would turn when she contemplated how she might tell Joseph. I believe the news of the day had worn the poor girl out because she collapsed onto her bed shortly after sunset. She was home alone that night, as her mother and siblings were visiting her father in Tiberias. She hummed herself to sleep with her wedding melody. The last words from her lips were, "Oh, my dear Joseph, how will you understand when I am pregnant by another and not by a man?" "Oh," concedes Elinzaith. "So it was quiet then," after a pause. "But I bet it was spectacular." "It, you ask? What do you mean?" "It, the moment." Her crystal blue eyes bore into you, but you have no idea what she is speaking of. "Don't tell me that even that was subtle," she blurts out with an unangelic edge of exasperation. "I'm sorry you offer, but I really don't know what you mean." Elinzaith explains. "It was the moment, the epoch, I dare say. The song and the rejoicing resounded on and on, rising and falling as we sang through the prophecies of Messiah. And then, about halfway through the prophecies, something happened that none of us has ever seen before. Some of the seraphim say that it happened at the very beginning, but it has never happened since." Now you've edged to the very edge of your seat in breathless expectation. Elinzaith pauses for a moment too long. "Oh, come!" You can't help yourself. "Don't hold out on me now." Elinzaith leans in over her drink and begins in a slow whisper. "About halfway through our singing of the prophecies, the three rose from their throne." Your heart skips a beat. "Yes," she presses, "all three, all at once, the Most High, the Word, and the Ruach, together, they walked out onto the sea of glass," and her voice trails into a wisp. "They began to dance." "Dance," you gasp. "On the sea of glass? How?" "Like birds," Elinzaith muses. "They began to glide over the glass in long, beautiful movements, like birds flying in the sky. It was majestic. They weaved in and out of one another, lifted one another, swung one another in great circles. The sight was so wondrous that I forgot to sing on several occasions." Elinzaith trails off as both of you are lost in the rapturous vision of the three gliding and sweeping over the sea of glass. After some time, Elinzaith rescues herself. And then it happened. The three joined hands and began to spin in a circle. At first their arms were wide and the circle was large, but as they spun faster and faster, the circle drew tighter and tighter. Their speed accelerated to such a point that there were no longer three, but only one. So immense was their light and their wind that all of us, even the seraphim, threw ourselves to the ground. Nobody could stand. Just before I tucked my head beneath my wings, they detonated. You look at her, speechless. I saw an enormous pulse of light, so bright that it blinded me for a time. Oh, Zendai, we worshipped. We lay prostrate on the ground and worshipped for hours and hours. Another contemplative silence. But when we finally looked up, we were shocked once again. There were only two. Your mind reels. Two. What do you mean? I couldn't believe it myself, she continues. The three have always been three. But after the flash of light on the glassy sea, there were only two. The Most High and the Ruach. But the Word was nowhere to be seen. Oh, you slowly drool as a memory falls into place. I remember now. Ellenzaith's eyes beg you to continue. About halfway through the night, the light of the full moon broke through the clouds and fell on Mary's face as she slept. Then came the sound of a rushing wind. She moaned as if dreaming, and her hands went to her tummy. I thought then that I had seen a faint glow within her, as if she had swallowed a star. That must have been the moment. But it was so small. Even I struggled to see it, that star, that light inside of her. That was the Word, and now he's in her flesh.